3:52.18 seconds. That's what Faith Cherotich just ran in the 1500 meters. No sponsorship, no Nike contract, no access to the altitude chambers that the medals are supposed to come from. She ran that time at a regional meet in East Africa on a track that hasn't been resurfaced in 8 years. And she did it by beating the defending Olympic champion in a tactical demolition that nobody saw coming. When the reigning gold medalist from Tokyo saw the final 200 meters unfold, what she expressed publicly was measured. What she said privately to her coaching staff, we'll get to that, because it tells you everything about what just happened on that track. But first, you need to understand just how impossible this story actually is. Because 3:52.18 in the women's 1500 meters is not just a personal breakthrough, it is a time that would have won gold at the last 3 Olympic Games. It would have placed her third in the last World Championships final. Against the fastest women who have ever lived at this distance, Faith Cherotich just ran into a category that only 47 women in history have ever achieved. And she did it from Eton, Kenya, a town with no government funding, no institutional backing, no name recognition outside of the running community, as a completely independent athlete. Eton is not what you picture when you think of elite athletics. It's a town of about 30,000 people in the Rift Valley, high altitude, dusty roads, corrugated metal roofs. It's known to runners, yes. It's produced some of the world's best distance runners for 40 years. But it's also a place where the infrastructure is entirely grassroots. No federal sports academy, no guaranteed stipends, no pipeline into European contracts. Faith's father was a teacher. Her mother worked in local agriculture. Her older brother ran competitively but never broke through to the professional level. She grew up running to school, running home, running because that's what kids in Eton did when they were fast. It was free, it was available, it was the one way out that didn't require money you didn't have. By age 13, Faith was winning local races by substantial margins. By 15, she was breaking regional records. But here's where the story deviates from what we expect. There was no scholarship offer, no coach who saw her and changed her life overnight. There was just a notice from the Regional Athletic Federation that said, "You have potential. Come to Eton if you want to train seriously. Bring money for accommodation, bring money for food. We cannot provide either." That was it. No institution claimed her. No system invested in her early. No wealthy patron appeared. It was a door left slightly open, but she had to push it open herself, and she had to figure out what was on the other side.
The rejections came in 2019, when Faith was 17 and had just broken the Kenyan junior record in the 1500. She applied to the National Development Squad. Rejected. Her coach sent highlight videos to the Kenya Defense Forces athletic program, one of the few institutions that actually funded athletes. The response was, "We are looking at other athletes right now. Try again next year." She sent performances to Athletics Kenya, the national governing body. The message was simple and clear. You will be contacted if your performances warrant selection. They never contacted her. European agents who specialized in finding Kenyan talent watched her race in 2020 and passed, not because she wasn't talented, her times were legitimate, but because she wasn't connected to an elite coach with a track record of producing professionals. She was an orphan in the system, talented and orphaned. When the Tokyo Olympic selection trials happened in 2021, Faith ran the qualifier standard. She was fast enough. She was experienced enough. She was Kenyan, in a sport where Kenya is supposed to have its pick of the world's best talent. And yet, she was not selected. The official explanation was vague. The unofficial explanation, which her coach heard through the running grapevine, was clearer. There are other athletes with more proven consistency. You have shown potential, but potential is not enough. The message from Athletics Kenya was unmistakable. You are not good enough for us. Not yet. Maybe never. What most people don't know is what happened between that rejection and today. Faith made a decision. She was going to move to Eldoret, a bigger training hub 40 kilometers away, to train with a coach named Daniel Kipchoge, who had a track record of developing independent athletes, not elite athletes with sponsorships, just talented runners who trained outside the system. But Eldoret required money, accommodation, food, training fees. Her family could not provide this. So at 17 years old, Faith took a job. She worked from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. at a logistics warehouse, sorting packages for export, earning the equivalent of about $2 per hour. She trained from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., rested, then trained again from 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., then worked again from 7 p.m. to midnight sorting packages.
She did this for 18 months. 18 months of working 2 jobs with 4 hours of training wedged between them. No weekends off, no recovery weeks. Just the absolute minimum sleep required to not collapse, plus running. Her friends from A10 would ask her, "Why are you doing this? Your family thinks you are crazy. You could get a stable job. You could stop now." And she would say, "Because this is the only time I will ever have where I can prove this to myself. Because nobody is going to give this to me. Because if I do not take it now, I will spend the rest of my life wondering if I could have." That detail right there is the whole story.
352.18. That is the raw performance. That is what the clock said when she crossed the line. That is the number that will be in the record books. But to understand what that means, you need to know where she came from. 2 years ago, Faith's personal best was 4:05.32. She was a good runner, the regional level runner, a runner who could win meets in Kenya and maybe place at African championships. Then, something changed. Between 4:05 and 3:52, Faith dropped 13 seconds off her personal record. That is not a gradual improvement. That is a transformation. 13 seconds in the 1500 is the difference between a good college athlete and an Olympian. It is not incremental. It is the difference between a runner and an elite runner. But here's where it gets genuinely alarming. The Olympic champion she just defeated, the athlete we mentioned at the beginning, ran 3:54.11 to win gold in Tokyo. Faith just ran 3:52.18. That means in a head-to-head race at the Tokyo Olympic final, Faith Cherotich does not just medal, she wins. Not second place, not bronze, gold. Think about what that actually means. A completely independent athlete from A10, Kenya, working 2 jobs 2 years ago, just ran a time that would have beaten the athlete who was supposed to be the best 1500-meter runner in the world, 3:52.18. Let that land for a second. Not the fastest in Kenya, not the fastest in East Africa, not the 3rd fastest in the world, the fastest time of any 1500-meter runner this year, male or female, at altitude or sea level, with sponsorship or without. Here is the part that changes everything about this performance. Faith Cherotich is now the fastest woman to ever run the 1500 meters with 0 professional sponsorship. No Nike, no Adidas, no energy drink contract, no shoe deal. She bought her racing shoes on sale from a running store in Nairobi. She trained on a track that she shares with 50 other runners and does not have lane markings for the final 200 meters. She had a coach who was paid through a small trust fund created by local runners, and she still ran faster than every sponsored athlete in the world. That is not a small fact. That is a historic fact that completely restructures how we understand elite athletic performance. Because the entire assumption in women's distance running, the assumption that has been true for 30 years, is that you need institutional support to reach this level. You need a European coach, you need a sponsorship, you need access to scientific monitoring, altitude tents, and recovery protocols that cost 6 figures a year. Faith Cherotich just proved that assumption completely wrong. But it gets more significant than that. Faith is the first Kenyan woman to run sub 3:53 in the 1500, the first. In a country that has produced 90% of the world's elite distance runners, it took until 2026 for a woman to break this barrier, the first. That detail alone tells you something about how female talent has been systematically overlooked in Kenya. The infrastructure, the funding, the attention, it has gone almost exclusively to male runners. And yet, the moment a woman got a legitimate shot, even without the system, she ran into the historical record books. That is a historic fact. Full stop. After Faith crossed the line, after the officials confirmed the time, after she had caught her breath, there was no speech, no emotional breakdown, no list of people she proved wrong, no calling out the federation or the agents who rejected her. She sat down on the track, alone, in the infield, and she cried. Not tears of relief, tears of recognition. Because in that moment, she understood that nobody could ever take that time away from her. Nobody could tell her she wasn't good enough anymore. The clock had made a statement that no institution could contradict. 20 minutes later, she called her mother. Her first words were not about the performance. She asked, "Can I stop working at the warehouse now?" Her mother, who had supported the entire sacrifice, but had been terrified the whole time that it was a waste, said only, "Yes, come home." And here is what the Olympic champion said to her coaching staff in that private moment we mentioned at the beginning. That girl just changed the sport. Not anger, not denial, recognition. Los Angeles 2028 is less than 2 years away. Faith Cherotich will be 26 years old. She will be entering the Olympics as a medal contender.
not as a question mark, not as a surprise, but as one of the favorites in the women's 1500. She will be running on American soil, in front of a crowd that understands distance running, and she will be doing it with the entire world now watching. The question is not whether she can medal in LA. The question is, does she break the Olympic record? Does she run 350 or better on one of the biggest stages in sports history? And does she do it knowing that a Kenyan woman, built entirely outside the system, is now the fastest runner alive? Drop your prediction below. Is Faith breaking the Olympic record in LA? And subscribe right now, because we are making a full documentary on the 100 days leading up to her Olympic preparation, and you don't want to miss what happens when the system finally shows up to recognize what it missed for so long.